Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Before
How are you?
Memorial Day, before summer.
Good. Looks like your kids.
Go ahead and get started. We're going to try to be on a tight schedule today. I will go ahead and announce I'll call the meeting to order for a special budget work session today, May the 23rd. And also note that Commissioner Dietz could not be with us this morning. He's a little under the weather, so remember him. And with that being said, Mr. Adams, do you want to say anything before we start with the presentations?
Uh, Nothing but just to get us started. This is our normal budget work session. The individuals you have on the agenda today are who we request to come and speak before the board on an annual basis. The SEC, Southwestern Community College, public schools, the library, and the sheriff. You do see down there that, as I stated during my presentation, the majority of nonprofits did chose not to appear before the board. And so, but we did have here who wished to appear before the board. So instead of scheduling it We do have our work session tomorrow. We can just dedicate that solely to budget discussions. So I went ahead and scheduled them today. And so hopefully we can, I believe we'll get to them a little bit quicker than the 10:30. Other than that, I would just recognize Dr. Don Thomas.
Okay, Dr. Thomas, come forward.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How y'all doing?
Good.
Good. How are
Good
you?
weekend?
Yes, sir.
Good. If you had a little sleeping troubles in the evening, I gave you a little extra materials there to encourage yourself to sleep more soundly.
So it's scared.
So-
Go to sleep.
But what I want you to appreciate is what I'm handing you there is the economic value of Southwestern Community College on the inside. We do a MC study, and it shows you, gives you all the numbers of our training and the jobs that are taken and fulfilled within our service area. On the other side, we have Community College 101, which gives you a lot of information about the college. And then also we have our college impact piece, and it shows you the number of jobs that or students that graduate each year and the types of disciplines and degrees that they earn. And then also after the economic development sheet, it has one for the state of North Carolina also. And then I put in health sciences, business professions, college transfer, and engineering. So that we just picked about 5 different disciplines to give you an idea of the support that you provide for us as a community college, the value on the return of that investment back to the community with the taxes that go back into our county, the savings for health and mental health issues that go along with that. So just look over that, and as you have an opportunity, if you have questions, please feel free to give me a call. And I'd be remiss if I didn't give a save the date card in there also on Boots, Blue Jeans, and Bling, which is our annual scholarship fundraiser that we'll be holding up at Harrah's also. Mr. Adams gave me approximately 15 minutes. You took 5. I've already used 3. The presentation that we have there, if you'll flip it through, we can be done in 2. So operating expenses, I always come to you and I always just say, here's my needs. We really do not come in with a lot of wants, and we don't play the horse haggling game where I start high and we go low. This is what we need. This is where we're at. And I just appreciate you all over the years that we've been doing this and working with Mr. Adams and Darlene. And we kind of land real close to what that is. So we don't have to worry a whole lot, but it all depends on the budget. So we propose on that first sheet for operating expenses, $2,534,382. Most of that increase is because of personnel costs, like everybody else is experiencing with the minimum wage throughout the state that's going on, supplies, all those things that are hitting us. So I think that ended up at a nominal amount of money over the previous year, and you'll see it in here on the last page when we get to it. If you go to the next page, the capital requests, excuse me, we're asking for approximately $398,000. We do have a lot of fleet vehicles and replacement and maintenance there. Facilities is the TLC stuff that I call it, just kind of the upkeep with keeping things looking good and nice. Firing range, a little bit of money there, and then there's some incidental there that Mr. Adams and I and Darlene talked about. The next page, total budget request, you can see where we're at. We added the health sciences building this current year, which I think was at a tune of approximately 300,000 plus to our operating budget or our total budget. So you can see that 22-23 we're increasing it by a fairly nominal amount, but it's still not as much as what our 17-18 budget was. So I mean we're holding it at that really needs level type request. And then the last page, there's nothing more than to say thank you for all your support. You get it. I've always said you get it. You understand the community college, what we provide, how we operate within our community and our service area. We are a huge economic development engine, providing the necessary job training and education for our community and the people to take jobs within our service area and in our county. So I appreciate all your support and everything that you do. There you go. 2 minutes.
Any questions, Dr. Thomas, or comments?
I do. I have two questions. The firing range, the last
Yep.
time you had done,
Yep.
and I haven't had any calls recently. And I don't know if those people maybe have given up or, um, if it's gotten better. Were you able to do those things like the
Yes.
entry and to lower the number of people that would come and those kinds of things?
And some of that's seasonal.
Oh,
Commissioner
okay.
Woody, some of that is seasonal on the use of the firing range.
Yes.
We, the last project that we have, and we've discussed with Mr. Adams also in this process, is the security aspect with cameras
Yes.
and the card. And that's all there. We just have to get it completed and have that done with the contractor. So it's all complete as the original conversation that we had to redo the firing range, add the lane that helps move people through a little bit
Right.
quicker. And they raised that berm quite a bit, and then they planted some additional trees along there
It looks
also.
good.
Yes, it is.
Now,
And this 70, yeah, go ahead.
well, I'm just going to say then, I think you were starting to tell me what the 75.
I anticipated your question is what's the additional 70?
Yes, it is.
It is during construction and under construction, that road's never been paved from the gate
Okay.
all the way up to kind of where the building is for the instruction. Right. And so there's a lot of wash coming out of that area there. So that was one of the items that Curtis had asked for to have that paved from that building parking up above all the way down to the security
Is
gate.
it just gravel now?
It is pretty much in some broken pavement and just it's just not in good shape. So yeah.
And then my second question and last question, I ask this of all providers and just businesses I come in contact with, are you able to fill positions? Are positions being filled at SEC, or do you have some workforce issues?
We do have workforce issues. We have some very specialized training positions, as you would anticipate with some of the instructional areas. Some of those areas go 3 months to 6 months. We are beginning to see a little more relief on some of our AA positions, front desk type individuals. We are not having the numbers apply for positions that we once had, as you can imagine. And those individuals that are looking for positions, you need to do interviews right away rather than wait 3 to 4 weeks, because by the time you call them, they've already accepted something elsewhere. So those are the challenges that we're having also. So yeah, we're having those challenges probably just like everybody else in the same conversations that we're all having across the board. So yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Other questions or comments, Mark?
Dr. Thomas, any new word on the Aspen project?
No, we have not heard anything yet, Commissioner Jones. That is the first part of June, so I anticipate we're about another week away. And for Mark's aware of it, you may have read an article in the newspaper about the Aspen Prize, community colleges, excellence, and things of that nature. And we're a semifinalist, one of 25 throughout the nation. So that's a huge kudos. It's the first time that any of the North Carolina community colleges have been part of that group. And so they'll narrow it down to the next top 10. And that will be, we should find out, they said the first part of June. So I'm probably, next 3 weeks, we may hear something as to whether or not we move on to the finalist round. So fingers crossed, prayers and good thoughts, and hopefully we'll be there. If not, it's been a great opportunity for us at this point in time, and we're very excited about just being where we landed. So very good.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Dr. Thomas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
14 minutes with 9 minutes.
You did good.
Okay, are we ready? Do you have anybody else, Dr. Ayers, that needs to be here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, we'll let you go ahead and get started. Welcome today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your listening ears, and I do want to say thank you to those three who could attend our Excellence in Education. It was a grand evening, I think, so I appreciate you being there and supporting our folks. So I won't quite be as fast as Dr. Thomas, but I will be as succinct. So I am here to share a request for you as a group of commissioners to look at our funding for the upcoming school year. So what you see, first of all, is just a historical perspective of what's happened over the last several years, dating back from 2014 all the way to this past year, where your funding was, for us, 8.431468. So thinking about what that looked like over time, we had some years of stagnancy that didn't change. And then last year, of course, was a good number for us, and so there wasn't a change at that point. But we come today because we have a much greater ask, and I want to explain a little bit why that ask is so much greater. So if you haven't read legislation or seen in the news, when the state of North Carolina passed the budget in January, the budget for the current year that we were in, that was halfway over, they passed the budget in January. And they put in a provision that all of our non-certified staff needed to receive a minimum of $13 an hour or 2.5% increase, whichever is greater. And with that $13 an hour, there was a very limited pot of funding that came to us. In that same legislation, there is a requirement that starting July 1, we will pay our non-certified staff $15 an hour, or 2.5% increase, whichever is greater. And I'm going to pause and say they deserve it. These are our school nutrition workers, bus drivers, our teacher assistants, a plethora of people who are not considered certified. And so many of those are making between $11, $12, $13 an hour now. And now minimally they're making 13. And then they're going to move to that $15 an hour or 2.5% increase as of July 1. So one of the things that we've done is look at where we can find support. These two sections that you'll see right here are provided to us from the NCASA, and that's the North Carolina Association of School Administrators, and just some talking points, so I thought I'd share them with you. So they are soliciting for the General Assembly to provide a pot of funds to help address these concerns. They've given us very limited funds, so it is not enough to take care of all the folks that we have that are in those non-certified positions. And then we're asking you all as county commissioners to cover raising the pay locally of these paid employees. So hoping that you will be able to supplement what the state is not giving us. Okay. So on the next slide is the big ask. So if you will see in about the middle and I call it the nude color, the total on the right side, our ask is 10,089,377, 10 million. So that's a much greater ask than we have asked for in the past. That will include the 6.6 in salaries, as well as the expected increase in costs for operations. So that total again is 10.089. So with our normal 2% increase that you typically allot us, that would be about 8.6. And then we know that we're going to need to dip into our fund balance. And so our fund balance is currently about 2.8 right now. And we're going to pull 300,000 out of that 306 just to be able to address the needs that we have right now for the upcoming year. I will say when that increase occurred in January, that legislation, we didn't have to come back and ask you all for more support mid-year. We were able to absorb that. Um, so if we pull the 306,000 out of our fund balance, we are still not where we need to be. I understand in talking and meeting with Don Adams that there is $455,000 that is a 5.4% increase that you are setting aside. And that set aside is as we anticipate the state budget, whether that be August. I pray it's not next January. I hope it's August. We will come back and revisit that to see if that's still a need, and I completely anticipate that that will be. Which leaves us a difference of in what we need $727,000. So when we get to that August, hoping that that budget is there, we're going to be ready to have conversation and hope that you can support us again with the difference that above and beyond the 455,000 that is set aside, that difference of $727,000. So in our conversations with Don, he's been very transparent. We recognize that we have some fund balance, and we certainly don't want to exhaust that, because if we exhaust that in one year, what's going to happen the next year and the next year and the next year? So we'll be hoping to have conversation again in August about how we can support with that other 727,000. Miss Woody, do you have a question? You look like you're poised to ask a question.
I do.
Okay.
No, I'll wait.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
That's fine.
The next slide is simply the state law that's now in place, and it shows what we're required to offer for that non-cert 13 and then the $15 an hour. So that's just an explanation of that. Another on the next slide, another vastly important piece of what we're asking for is the employer benefit costs. And if you look back just to 2016, we have gone up nearly 10% in what we are having to pay in employer benefit costs. And that is 10% in addition to all the raises that folks who deserve that. And so that makes that number even greater. So we're looking at 24.19%. Is what we're looking at paying in our employee benefit costs, and that's enormous to us. Enormous on top of the fact that people are getting well-deserved raises. On the next slide, just a little more information. So, when I said that the state didn't quite cover all of what we were required to do, that's because the state allocated us monies just for our state-paid employees. So any employee that's on our local budget, they did not give us funds to cover that. We made a decision as a school district that I'm not going to say, hey, Jake, you're a state funded, and Christy, you're a locally funded. You're not getting the raise, but you are, because that would be completely unfair and inequitable. So we are giving all of our non-certified that raise. I couldn't tell somebody that I wouldn't do that. That just would not be right for them. Plus, they don't choose what line I pay them out of. And so we have to really think about how fair that is, and why we made the decision to pay everybody that's non-certified those salary increases, because they deserve it. Of course, we need additional local money to cover that, and the moves to the new minimum level are really compressing our salary. So we're looking at folks who are newly hired for a custodial position who would be coming in at a greater rate than somebody who's been there 10 years. So you see that that's creating quite the morale issue with our staff. So we're trying to address that, because we can't have school without custodians and teacher assistants and bus drivers and school nutrition folks. And then on the last slide is just a reiteration of what I've said. The state has not provided enough funds. So it's not unfunded, the salary or the pay increase, not necessarily a salary. It's not unfunded. It's just underfunded, not sufficient. So that's why we come to you with a rather large ask this year, knowing that you have been more than generous to us in the past altogether over time. And so we're grateful for that, and we acknowledge it's a big ask, but we also know that we too are facing the same concerns with hiring staff that Dr. Thomas talked about earlier. We are, in some aspects, some job aspects, we are in crisis mode. So I'm going to pause and see if you have questions for me.
Mr. Woody, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. In this funding request, and I totally understand about the partially funded or unfunded mandates. Um, we face those all the time as
Right.
county commissioners. And that's one thing that the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners is fighting very hard
Good,
to address.
good.
And they're working on that right now on the state level. And that's one reason why our manager has suggested that we wait for some of this because we hope they'll be successful. There is a lot of lobbying going on and a lot of very committed people to to fight for these children and what they need in our schools.
I appreciate that. I know that there's been lots of chatter, lots of lobbying, just like you said. We're just kind of in a stalemate right
Right,
now.
right. The other thing I don't see reflected here, Dr. Ayers, the money that you all received from COVID. And I know that's not ongoing funds,
Right.
but I don't see that and the impact that that would have on what we would contribute.
Right. Our ESSERS money, which would be your ARPA, I think.
Yes.
So our ESSERS funds have been allocated, and we do have the budget for those, and I think I brought it along with me. We really work hard not to put many of our salaries in there because it's not sustainable.
Right. It's not
So
ongoing. We understand that.
knowing that whatever's in there, if we were to be able to in this current year, I'm just hypothetically, if we were able to convert, say, $300,000 and think we were going to put it in fund balance out of the ESSERS funds, then we're still going to have to come back and tap and pull that 306 out of it. So looking at that, we really avoid putting as many long-term folks in the ESSERS budget as far as salaries. We do have several positions in there that are specifically for ESSERS, like some of our social emotional support as a result of COVID. Those 29-hour or contracted, knowing that they're going to go away after so many years, many of those are in there. And that's what's exhausting most of that. The bulk of our funds has been spent on resources. I will say that, like tangible curriculum resources, as well as other things, cleaning supplies and things like that. And yes, we're backing off on that. The amount of funds we use for cleaning and such. So we are backing off on that, but we have a plan to allocate for the remainder of that in the next year and a half, 2 years.
You have a copy? Could we see?
I don't have it with me, but I'll be happy to email it to you
That'd be great.
because we did a presentation at our last board meeting of where we are, like standing here with ESSERS. Donna, did I give you one?
You did.
Okay.
I can either you
I could
can,
just email it to them. It's not a problem. Thank you.
and so that's where part of the presentation and conversations with the school system is that part of the overall strategy, because you remember there is some potential for these funds to, for lack of better terms, transplant, which could help with the fund balance conversation. That's what Dr. Ayers just said. That's really going to be a detailed portion of our conversations come in August, because it's going to be what the state budget has done.
Yes.
Okay. And so it's going to be a more in-depth idea of where these ESSER funds or ARPA funds have gone. And then that starts becoming, okay, when you go back and look at the 727 shortfall, then it becomes a conversation about how does that 727 get reduced? And so then that could be a combination of, simply put, it could be potentially a fund balance conversation between the two entities at that point. And when I mean the two entities, the county commissioners and the public school system. And that fund balance conversation is directly going to be impacted by the questions that you're asking right now, as far as the plan spend down and really focusing on where those ESSER funds gone, along with state revenues and along with the entire system. So I think, obviously, provide you a copy of what their plan is, but this will be part of that August
Absolutely,
conversation.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions?
Any indication from state officials on where the budget might go at all yet?
No, there is, I mean, there's a proposed budget. It's out there. So whether it has the support to carry on, that was released, I think, last week, just 7 to 10 days ago. I don't have any indication of which direction it's going. I have my next state superintendent meeting, June the 22nd. So I think that they'll probably be able to give us a little more direction of where they think it might be going.
I haven't read anything about that proposed budget yet. What does that look like?
Well, as always, they're asking for a pretty substantial salary increase for teachers, which is needed. You know how that gets whittled down over time. So that's probably the greatest impact that I see is, and obviously our teachers deserve it, but this has been conversation for the last decade, and it hasn't come to fruition. Just really small incremental pieces. So to me, when I look at it and I've read it, that's the biggest piece coming is a potential for increase for our certified staff. Good question.
And I know, I probably should know the answer to this question, but with counties, we are mandated by the state to have a certain amount of fund balance on hand at all time for debt reasons, and there's a mathematical formula. We also, in this county, have our own fund balance policy
Right.
that we established several years ago that we wouldn't spend our fund balance down to a certain point. And I understand it's good to have fund balance, and because cash flow, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why you want to have fund balance.
Right.
Are there mandates from the state legislatively that require your fund balance to be at a certain
I
amount?
don't know the answer to that. I'm gonna look back. I didn't think so, but in my mind, it's always been do not ever dip below $1 million. That's always been told to me. But
There's no statutory mandate for a fund balance. There's best practice that the local government association would say this is best practice for a school system, but there's not a mandate.
Okay.
What is their suggestion?
It's usually 5% of overall operating costs. And now our total operating cost is 44 million is our total operating cost. So.
Well, one of the things that I have been very pleased about is our, and we funded, as county commissioners, the additional counselors in every school. And I was at a state meeting and they were suggesting that counties do that. And I was so pleased that we had already decided to do that. Mr. Buchanan was a very much an advocate for that. And I have heard, being retired from Smoky Mountain High School, I've heard from many teachers just how much that has meant to our students. So we are committed to continuing that.
you all are forward thinkers in our state superintendent's meeting that we have quarterly. There's always conversation about mental health, social emotional support, but as well as interactions with county commissioners. And so I do always brag that we have some really generous and gracious county commissioners. So we're fortunate here for you all to have a collaborative relationship because that certainly I've found does not happen everywhere. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
I kind of have a question, but I'm not sure how to word it. With the inflation going up and up and up and up, are you taking into consideration the inflation in these numbers?
That's why our operating budget for operations has increased
Okay.
in what we're projecting. And so,
You're anticipating with the inflation?
we anticipated about a 5% increase is what we're
Okay.
looking at. So
Okay.
we had planned for that.
Okay.
We hope it stays at 5% is what I'm going to say here now, because at this point, who knows?
Yeah.
Other questions or comments?
I have a couple of things. I don't want to jump in front of you, but I just got a couple of
Go
things.
ahead.
A couple things, going back to the association, that comment, this issue as far as pay has really just now gotten onto the Association of County Commissioners radar in the past couple of weeks. If we could, we've been asked to provide them with dollar amounts of how that impacts the schools. So if you all would you send me just a real quick email just talking about that the mandate as far as local employees for you to match it will require X amount of dollars, and then I can turn that into what that means property tax wise.
You got it.
Because what's happened, and this is something for potentially the June 23rd meeting that can be discussed, but also obviously the discussion needs to be held before June 23rd with the association. There has been state monies budgeted. When I first approached the association about this, they turned around and gave me portions of the state budget that were passed, and there have been additional funds put in the state budget to help with state-funded positions in regards to these minimum wages.
Right.
Now, how that gets funded, it could be argued whether or not that's enough money or not, but I tell you that because from our state legislator standpoint, I think they may have a view that this has been funded from a state level because they put money into the current year budget, and then they put money in for next year's budget to help offset that cost. Now, what we're dealing with is the local paid employees, and that's what's really hasn't gotten on, as of a couple weeks ago, on everybody's radar. So as of last week, I believe it was last Thursday or maybe the Thursday before, I was on a manager's conference call with the association, and they had asked for that information. So I tell you that, Gail, because they are going to start putting together some talking points regarding this, specifically as far as going back to the state legislature in regards to seeing if there can be any funding for this unfunded mandate. Because this really is a mandate, a minimum wage, which I think we all understand that we got to look at wages for these critical positions, but the state really has not. It's interesting, they really have not talked about this. It hadn't really gotten on a lot of people's radar until here recently when managers started seeing the budget requests coming in from school systems. And so, for example, Buncombe County, is looking at the county manager there jumped in on these conversations, looking at a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
If you equate it to taxes, more taxes than we would be looking at to pay for this request. And so I just mentioned that because I'll share those talking points with you all once we get them together for the association to reach out and lobby that. The other thing is I did want to point out there has been a change in the recommendation. Now, obviously, I haven't changed this on this. What's online. This is what's online. And so let me jump to the schools real quick. When I did sit back down with the school systems, we did talk about their capital outlay. And remember, these funds right here come from the Articles 40 and 42 that are mandated to go to the school systems.
Right.
It just requires the Board of Education and the commissioners to agree. This line item is being proposed to be increased, the 235 by $100,000 to 335, and that is something that Mr. Buchanan and Jake had reminded that he and I had been having these conversations for a while, and that's for the school systems to enter into contracts with some architectural services. Currently, right now, if you look at all these estimates that we're dealing with, when you look at the grants that Mr. Buchanan submitted to the state for whether it be Fairview Cafeteria or Blue Ridge Gymnasium, things of that nature, it's based upon Jake trying to pull together information from different sources and not really engaging architectural services. We're talking and dealing with millions of dollars worth of future capital expenses, and it's always been my advice to the school systems that they need to go out and acquire services in a relationship with an architectural firm so that when we have these conversations that they're coming to us with some vetted numbers, some numbers that are being provided to us by professional architects. And so currently right now, Jake, you've gone through the request for qualifications process.
Yes.
Is that correct? And so at this point, It's a matter of just getting the money budgeted for them to proceed forward and get into this relationship with architect firms. So just letting you know that recommendation, that number is being recommended to 335, and that's something that the Board of Education is in support of too. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else from the board? Well, as always, thank y'all so much
Thank
for what
you.
you do.
Thank you.
We have with us today Tracy Fitzmaurice, our librarian. Tracy, anybody else coming today with you to present? Okay. Are you ready?
I am.
All right, we're running a little ahead of schedule, so we appreciate your willingness to come early.
Yeah, no, Mr. Adams said you might be, ahead of schedule, unlike me, that I'm gonna give you guys,
So much.
Now, is that dress the library? What did you tell me that was?
This is Hetty Lamal's, blueprint for, signal walking.
Oh, okay. She has the most interesting, some of them are books and.
Yeah, I'm a geek.
I'm gonna tell the sheriff, they're meeting downstairs, I'm gonna tell them to come on up.
Okay, that's fine.
Oh, I do, and I emailed you a copy also, Angie, just so that would be easier for you. Your notes, okay. I emailed that this morning. Good morning. I hope Mr. Deese is okay. Yeah, okay. Good morning, Chairman McMahon, Commissioners. Thank you for inviting me here today on this lovely rainy day. First of all, I'm sorry. Oh, no, it's
I
okay.
said which we needed, I should have.
Oh, for sure. I haven't had water. I finally got water this weekend after 2.5 weeks of no water at my house. So it's just beautiful to see water. It's all good though. Thanks for inviting me here. Wanted first of all to thank you for the proposed 7.4% increase in the budget for Jackson County Public Library and Albert Carlton Cash's Community Library. This increase will be used to increase staff wages, bringing many of our staff closer to a living wage and easing the difficulty that most people in this nation are currently dealing with the rise in inflation. Together with your funding and an increase in our Friends of the Library group's donations for both Cashers and Silva, an increase in the town of Silva's funding, and grant monies, the libraries will not only maintain, but we will improve our services in the coming year with a lot of really interesting new plans. So thanks to this very supportive increase. I'm not here today to request any additional funds. But I know you're busy, but I would like to take just a few minutes to highlight some of the past year's successes and make you aware of some of the upcoming projects so that you know what we will be up to in the library. So this past year, we have seen a continued demand for internet access and assistance for technology, as you can imagine. To meet these needs, library leadership has applied for and received many grants for a variety of, as you know, funding technology is a hard thing to keep up with. So any grant we can get, we go for. This past year, we have supplied patrons with the Verizon Hotspots. So if they cannot afford internet, and they can get a cell signal at their house. That's the trick. These hotspots are free to them to use for their schooling, for their children, for their business, or for just general use of the internet at home that most of us need. We also developed our Digital Seniors Grant, working with the Department on Aging, supporting seniors with a Chromebook free of charge and a hotspot, and also individual one-on-one training to learn technology. For those homebound, we are offering that in-home. So we will travel to their home to give them technical training and help them set up their Chromebook. It's been very successful. Many people have, I think there are 70 people using that right now across our counties, including Macon and Swain. Um, some of them have already turned them back in because they're confident enough to purchase their own equipment or have asked to continue using it because they do not have the money to buy their own technology. So that's been a very big success. We also got funding to introduce the mobile printing. So if people need to print from their cell phones or other devices, or if they're at home and their printer has suddenly broken and they have to print a report, they can print it from home and run by the library and pick it up. So that's another addition to our services. We also updated we received a grant to update our web conferencing equipment. So I think moving forward, hopefully we'll all get to meet more in person, but some of our meetings will be hybrid. And to make it more inclusive, we are adding 360-degree cameras and speaker units that will sit and move around to people in the meeting so that it will be more inclusive to everyone, even if they are virtual. That also includes a really large touchscreen TV that we can use in classes that will make it easier for people because it's 75 inches, so we will see everybody in those meetings. The last grant I will talk about is the Launchpad Learning. Launchpads are a tablet preloaded with curriculum-aligned software, none of which requires the internet. So it bridges that digital divide for children in preschool, pre-K through like grade 4 that need to learn how to use digital equipment. They do not have internet, but these are preloaded with curriculum supportive in math, English, all of those sort of things. It's it fosters equitable access to digital tools, which is one of our goals. I've also interspersed several pictures in this report. The first one being Jennifer Ross teaching our iPad and iPhone internet users group. She always has a full house with that, people learning, people who have new equipment or want to learn more things to do with their equipment if it is Apple based. The next couple of pictures is Laura Chapman teaching one of our seniors on their new equipment before they take it home for a one-on-one with their Chromebook and their hotspot. And then below that is Dr. Bacon. He teaches our Android user group, which is like the Apple one, but for Androids. So those are all popular classes. In addition to the new digital offerings, the library is still the place. Our number one thing in our survey is people want books. Everyone comes to the library for books. People say books are dead, but I beg to differ. That is still the number one reason people come to the library. This year, due to another grant funded, we were able to buy RFID reading inventory ones so we can inventory our collection more quickly. And we are carrying out diversity audits of all of our collections to make sure they are all up to date, covering diverse topics in an unbiased manner, which is of eminent importance for the library collection. So we strive to have a collection that supports the educational, informational, and recreational needs in our community. A couple of pictures there are beautiful displays, and we just love the picture of the little girl and her mom reading on the couch. That's one of the favorite pieces of furniture in the library. Um, in 2021, gosh, another grant we got was the Sustainable Long Range Planning Grant. I know some of you responded to the survey for that, and I appreciate your input. We were able to hire Ed Sherry, who is the retired director of the Buncombe County Libraries, and Dr. Dan Barron, who is the retired director of Avery Mitchell Yancey Regional Library. We were happy to have him on board because he understands the regional library. A survey was conducted with the general public, elected officials, our library partners like the Department on Aging, the Health Department, friends of the library, and staff. Amazingly, all of the results across the board were pretty much the same, the same highlights. Still wanting diverse reading collections, but the primary thing was internet access, as you are all aware. Our 5 focus groups for the 2022-2027 will be reliable internet access, education, work and economy, health and wellness, and the new topic that rose to the forefront for this coming long-range plan was affordable living, food insecurity, housing, etc. No new news probably for you that are governing the county. Affordable housing, a lot of people might say, what can the library do to help with that? Well, what we do is we are an information hub. So if someone comes, we have already worked with all the organizations in the community. We know where to send them for funding, for social services, different state programs to help with rent and things like that. So we are sort of a clearinghouse for that information. As you know, we do have some unsheltered people in the community. We also help work with them with Jackson Neighbors in Need. Here, the group here, other organizations, we have people on those groups. We have people on the board at the Council on Aging. So we sort of try and keep our fingers across the county so we can help people, direct people to where they need to go. We also work closely with our volunteers. Many of you will know Wanda Mills. She volunteers regularly at the library twice a week. We obviously run our bookstore. The Friends of the Library run our bookstore on volunteers. We have a fantastic volunteer base. Our new long-range plan is based on the triple bottom line methodology. We're the first library in North Carolina to use this methodology. It covers people, performance, and planet. It's like the 3-legged stool. If one doesn't hold up, none of it's going to hold up. With the planet, we're looking at environmental sustainability and reviewing our operations to make sure it is sustainable, not just in the building, but also our whole regional concept of sustainability. So our key components for the upcoming year obviously are continuing our many partnerships. Those are vital. The Department on Aging, Jackson County Public Schools, the charter schools, WCU, SCC. We work closely with VIA. The Boys and Girls Club of the Plateau rely heavily on the Cashers Library, as does Blue Ridge School, for their facilities, and we do outreach to those groups. And the Jackson County Health Department, I'm on a couple of their task force, so we work with them closely on health for the community. We'll continue to work with NC Works, who we have working in our building one day a month, and SCC's small business with Monty Harris. We work closely with her. We are working, Diane Lindgren, the Assistant County Librarian, has been just joined the newly formed task force for digital inclusion, which was, I'm sure some of you may have been at the meeting last Monday, the Library for Southwestern's commission and their digital inclusion platform, so we're part of that. This past year, I have worked closely with WCU with their social work department, working with a group reviewing the possibility of having a social worker intern in-house in the library full-time, something we're striving for. The reports are looking really good. So hopefully in the coming year, we will have a social worker on board to help us with the many things we do for the community. We have started back with outreach now that many daycares and assisted living are letting us back in the buildings. That sounded harsh, not letting us back in, you know what I mean, COVID protocols, encouraging us back in. So we are delivering books, doing story times. We are going to continue doing that. The reading rover is off the road. The collection has been split up and donated to the daycares, and we are going in and doing story times and working with the assisted living homes to get them the books they need. Obviously, we'll continue our programming with children, teens, and adults. Part of our long range plan is to develop a compensation plan that is sustainable. We will also continue to support staff training so that they can do their jobs confidently while offering their best customer service. Many of these activities will fall under our operational excellence goals, and those are guided by the North Carolina Public Library Standards, and a new revised edition of that was released in 2021. So a lot of these standards will be coming directly from those. I'm happy to share that with you if you need some extra reading, but you can be assured I'll read it and make sure our stuff is based on those standards. So our mission, as you know, is to provide the publics of Jackson, Macon County, and Swain County with excellent service and convenient access. And our vision statement is the heart of the community, enriching lives and inspiring the future. And it's more important than ever. And the community benefits from having a commission that really supports that and supports our public library. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I would like to come back in August once the July's finalized long-range plan is done, and we can highlight some of those key areas, and you can let me know things you'd like me to focus on within that long-range plan. So thank you for your time and your continued support. I'd love to answer any questions you may have.
Other comments, questions? Commissioner Jones?
Those Chrome devices.
Yes.
Is that 100 for the 3 counties?
It is right now. Yes, it is right now.
How long can you check out one of those Chrome devices?
As long as you need it.
Okay, very good.
Yes. We've had people that have had them. We are renewing the grant. We are renewing, not the grant, we already have the devices. Luckily, Verizon has also dropped from $40 a month on the hotspots for education. They're only charging $10 a month. So we are working on more funding to cover that, but also at that, the overall budget, we're looking at moving some of our costs to continue supporting the hotspots. Unfortunately, they don't work in a lot of areas,
Right.
like my house, but they have been very useful for students, and it's a cheap, economical way for them. It's cheap for them; they don't pay anything to borrow one. And the Chromebooks do self-update, so we don't have to worry about them needing updates. We teach the people that receive them those are set automatically, so they are aware of those updates.
It's a little thing, but I do appreciate you doing front and back on these copies.
Yes, normally I would project it, but I thought it would just be easier for you to take and read this way. And we are reviewing our printing. We have saved money, a lot of money, with less printing and less travel, and like I said, that sustainable outlook. So, and someone from the county is coming to review with our staff and do a public program on recycling and things that the county does. So we'll continue working with that.
Woody, did you have a question?
Well,
Thank you.
I know that, Tracy will not brag on herself, but I just want to say that she has just celebrated 30 years of work for the Fontana Regional Library, most of that in Jackson County.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And she is just such a wonderful asset to our community. The way that she runs the most beautiful building we have, and also
Yeah.
serves our community in so many ways, just from the youngest to the very oldest people.
I love it when patrons come in and say, "Oh, you're turning 30," and it's like, yeah, right. Look at me, but also, that's 30 years working here.
So much for all your service.
Thank you. Any other
Other comments or questions?
questions?
Mr. Adams, the work that we did on the Albert Carlton roof area, entry area, was that done in-house with our staff up there?
I don't think it was.
No.
Okay, okay.
No, we
Well,
don't, that's getting a little.
They did a good job, and we appreciate up there.
They do a good job, and they also just got a grant and a patron donation to replace the flooring in the children's reading room up there because it is carpet, and they want something a little more, and it's also 1994, I guess that was. Well, no, that was put in. That was updated, but there is a generous benefactor and partly a grant, so that hopefully won't come down on the county to replace that flooring. So we appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank
what
you.
y'all do, and I've said this many times before, but I will always say this. I'll never get tired of saying it. I very much appreciate the public library system and what it provides to our community. It's an invaluable resource, and I know we hear a lot about Chromebooks and hotspots and lots of features and technology and different services that our community library provides that just a couple of decades ago were words and phrases and terminology that no one knew anything about. But that shows you how the library has been able to evolve
Yeah.
and continue to provide services to our community, which are beyond books. But I'm glad to hear that books are still a core part of
They are.
the library's purpose. My grandmother was always said that the Jackson County Public Library System was the greatest thing about this county.
No.
She was such an avid user of the library, and probably one of the hardest things that I had to do 24 years ago when she passed is to go into her bedroom and to pick up all the library books that were laying around the bed that she
Yeah.
was reading and to return those.
Return 'em.
Because she visited on a very frequent basis, and I still have her library card. And I know my wife, who reads circles around me,
She's in there a lot.
she is there a lot. I think she reads about 30 to 40 books a year. And she was working on her list this week she just finished one and wrote another one down, and here I am struggling to try to catch up. So I know that my wife and kids enjoy the library, and y'all do great jobs. So
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Adams.
Okay, I think we're waiting on the sheriff.
sit
So let's
there in
take
the
a
hall.
quick recess while we're waiting for them to come.
Thank you so much.
You know, you engage a community.
Let me get my microphone in here. We'll come back to order, and next on our list is a presentation from the sheriff on behalf of the sheriff's office and their budget request. Sheriff, it's good to have you with us.
Yes.
I'll let you introduce whomever you're going to let present. Make some opening comments.
Hey, thank you for having us here this morning. It's a rainy, gloomy day and a good day to be indoors.
Absolutely.
But we was needing the rain, so I'm not complaining. So, Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for having us here this morning. We'll just go ahead and get cranked up here a little bit. And I've got Major Queen back there in the back with me, Captain McCoy, and Chief Deputy White. And we'll just kind of take turns at this and let them go through. But I hope all of you had the opportunity to look at our 2022-2023 budget presentation. And we have tried to be very mindful on this. I know we got some personnel requests and stuff in there. It's always, every year in my experience, of budgeting's a big topic because it's a reoccurring annual expense. And I know there's a lot of things going on with pools and fire departments and fire department personnel and everything else. And I thank you for taking time to look at that. But our personnel issues has kind of leveled out. With much thanks to the recent pay plan that took place, we were able to slow down some of the people going to some of these other agencies now that we're competitive with our neighbors in the law enforcement business. So let me just say thank you for that. It's we started this about a year ago, and were helpful. Last year's budget, then the county-wide took place in March, and it's really helped us out retaining good quality candidates here, and it's opened up our applicant pool. So let me just say thank you for that. So we'll just kind of go over our budget. Chief, Major, you just want to come on up? Sure. Always trying to look out for the men and women that serve and protect our county, and we feel good with the pay plan that we have in place now. I'm gonna move that before I knock that off. We feel really good with it, but we're always looking for ways to compensate them. As you can see on page 4, we've got some different things in there: hazard duty pay, holiday pay, educational training pay, just some different things that we have in there. The most important of those being holiday pay. We would really, really like if somewhere in the near future to really look at the holiday pay for our men and women, the sheriff's office, and our detention center. We have to maintain 24/7, 365 coverage, and we appreciate the time that we get off and bonus leave and annual leave and holidays and all that, but it does create us a problem maintaining coverage with our time of trying to schedule everybody off with the personnel that we have. So we'd really like for you to take a close look at our holiday pay in the future, about instead of letting them have the day off, look at compensating them through pay. So that's very important. Chief, you got anything you want to add to that, or Major?
The term force multiplier is the terms that get thrown out with that. And of course, having to let somebody off when coverage is expected. And most people take off the day, of course, and for the 12 or 13 holidays that are given. So we have to turn around and give that to those people who are working, and in public service, that just means that's another day when we're short, and we have to manage that through the year. So it will help the officer safety and increase community safety as well, I believe.
So we're talking about just paying the people to work? the day of the
People that
holiday.
work the holidays pay them instead of giving them a day off at a later time, because that, we just have to reschedule somebody else to cover in and fill in for them. So we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and we just like to, if they work on if they're off on a holiday, they're off. But if they work on the holiday instead of getting another day off sometime in the near future, that they just get paid for that holiday. So we don't have to schedule them off somewhere else down the road and get somebody else to come in and cover that. So,
Now, Chief Hall, would that be time and a half? Would it be their regular pay, or because it might be more than they would normally work? Would it be
well,
regular pay or
well,
more?
there's a couple of things there we'd have to look at, a
Oh,
couple of
okay.
things we need to explore and look into, and that's what we're asking you as the board and the county manager to, rather sooner than later, address that, it needs to be, and I would request it, fairly soon, so, we could, move forward with that. We got a couple options. Not answering your question, we just got a couple options there, so it's something we all need to sit down and look at and explore and make sure we're within the federal labor laws.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions on that? Page 5, and that's a personnel request. And I'll go quick through these personnel requests. That's for 2 narcotics officers for our sheriff's office. Unfortunately, about every community has a problem with somebody who's dealing in the illegal drug trade. And we've got men and women down there that's working hard every day to try to address the issues. They're putting people in jail. We've got 2 officers assigned to federal drug task force. It's a big plus for us, but I can use plenty of help, and we've put a request in there for 2 narcotics officers. I'll be honest with you, I could use 6 or 8, but two's a good start.
Correct.
Could some of the opioid money that we get, do you know, Heather, if that would be a legal use of some of that money to help with this, or
It could be, but it's not,
it's one time?
it's a one-time, yeah, it's one-time
I understand,
funds.
yeah, okay,
She asked about the
That-
opioid funds.
yes.
That's what I was talking about earlier.
Right.
Personnel requests are always reoccurring
They are.
annually, and it's,
Yeah.
I know that puts a burden on our finances that we have at times when we create additional positions, because it's just not a one-time deal, it's reoccurring annually, so. The, page 6, that's an administrative assistant, help with Senate Bill 300. Our legislators passed Senate Bill 300, which is basically criminal justice reform. And it changed the landscape of law enforcement and hiring and the practices of getting people qualified to be certified law enforcement officers in the state of North Carolina. That position is just to assist with Senate Bill 300. We'll move on rather quickly. 7 and 8, just some statistics. We put in for a reclassification. I'll not spend a lot on page 9. I'll not spend a lot of time on that. I'll let you look at that in the future. Our line item request, on-call compensation. Let me. We won't spend a lot of time on that. That's basically just keeping up the costs of everything that's going on in our nation at this time. I'll let you look at that on when you have a little free time. Appreciate whatever you can help us out on our line items. We'd appreciate it. So, On page 12, the last one there, special projects. That's important that you take time to look at that. We've, on page 12, contracted services, we have went to a Power DMS, which is a digital online policy and procedure, and it's been well worth what we spent in it originally, and that's something we need to maintain, keep up. I'll let Chief kind of tell you a little bit about Power DMS and why it's important to us, some of the functions and abilities that we have with it.
The contract services line item increase with Power DMS. It's just a program that allows us to track our signatures and our acknowledgements of all our policy. And it's on an online format as well as in an app. So it puts it in the hands of these of our deputies out here in the road. So if they need to reference policy, they can reference it on their phone, their mobile device. The good thing from an administrator standpoint is, as you know, it helps us with our liability because we're able to track and be sure when our employees viewed the policy, when they acknowledged the policy, and it's a really good program, and it cuts down on us having to hand out papers, make sure people sign, things like that. So not only is it easily accessible, but you get the administrator side of it for tracking and accountability with your policies. And I was just interesting enough, I was talking to Kathleen last week. She uses NeoGov a lot. NeoGov just bought Power DMS and they're merging into one company. So it's a program that's been real useful to us, and taking away that old paper policy that we're all familiar with. And when you're working within a law enforcement setting like we are, and you've got a policy manual that's hundreds of pages thick, making it online and in that digital format really streamline what we're doing there. So that's it's a recurring cost for us going forward. Initial was the $8,000 investment. You have to pay a licensing fee on every year, so that's why the contract services has the increase.
We'll move on through page 12. Our capital outlay, our vehicles. One thing that I would request, we've had a terrible time trying to get vehicles this past year. It's we've had to hunt and scrape and peck, and it's a continuous problem, and it don't look like it's what we see on the horizon. It don't look like it's getting any better. So customarily, we usually release this money in October. We would ask that you to consider releasing it July 1 so we can get to work trying to locate vehicles. Because the problem we're having, we're competing with every other law enforcement agency in this country. And I met last week with the sheriffs from the 16 western counties, and it's a continuous problem for all of us. Everybody's looking for vehicles and trying to maintain their motor fleet. So we would ask if, upon approval of this, instead of it waiting till October, that it be released in July so we can go ahead and move forward with investing in these vehicles. So. I'm just kind of flipping through. I don't want to take up a lot of your time. We've got this here for you. Just can take time to look at it. And I will go back to page 19. We've been researching with the some of the things that's been going on in detention facility, ours and many others across the state. If you watch the news, unfortunately, there's some type of death or something in detention centers almost weekly now. A lot of times it's from overdoses or someone attempting to take their own life or something. So one of the things that we've put in for this year is a body scanner, and it's a costly piece of equipment. It is something that I've talked to other sheriffs about, and jail administrators, and tried to get the best bang for the buck, research a little bit, and see what companies are reputable and what's the best product out there for the money. And what we're finding, what we've submitted this year, is what we've determined through lots of research to be the best product out there. For now, we can get cheaper ones and we can get a lot more expensive ones, but for what we have determined that this one's about the for the money, it's the best bang for the buck. So, neither one of you want to talk on our captain about the scanner?
The one that we're looking at, is the smallest platform because we're limited in our detention center with space. So, it's one of the highest rated, plus it actually fits in our area, so that's why we're really looking at the one we're looking at.
And Sheriff, if I may, what's been proposed is to go ahead and release the 330, the vehicle monies July 1st. And I'm also going to change the recommendation to release this to be available July 1st, the body scanner, because this is really a safety issue. And Chief, you and I talked about this a little bit, and what I just mentioned to Darlene, if it's okay with the board, that what I am going to recommend that this become available to spend right at July 1st, so they can, I'm assuming you can't just buy this thing and it get installed the next day. It'll take some process and planning and things of that nature, so.
We've got to come in and do inspection and
Yeah.
things like that first.
So if we waited till October or November, then it could be months, weeks and months afterwards. So.
Thank you, Ms. Travis. Thank you, Ms. Fox.
Commissioner Woody, did you have a comment or question?
I do, and my understanding is this scanner would be able to detect not only weapons hidden on a person, but also drugs?
Drugs.
Okay.
We,
It's mostly for drugs.
drugs,
Okay.
weapons, anything like that, mostly drugs. We have I'm not going to go into detail,
No, that's fine.
but as far as a lot of the drugs, they are put in body cavities or inhaled, and you can kind of use your imagination there.
Wow.
So I'll just leave it at that. But this should be able to detect
Detect them, that's good.
the
Sheriff, about the cars, how do y'all, figure on when they need replacing, by years old, or by how many miles get on them, or?
I'll let the chief and the major talk to you a little bit of that, but it's a combination of things,
Combination of everything.
Commissioner. It's it might be mileage, it might be condition of the car, it might be if we're having mechanical issues with it, cause we might have a car that's 3 years older. It's assigned to an SRO, and they drive back and forth to school every day versus one that's out here on the road. We might have one 3 years newer to have a lot more mileage and a lot more mechanical issues. But it's just a combination. But I let the major,
Okay.
he kind of helps with the motor fleet, because it's a it's a continuous revolving door with them vehicles.
Right.
Yeah, so the best way to probably address it would be each one's assessed on an as-needed basis. We kind of know after having so many of the same car about when they're going to start causing trouble. But unfortunately, some of them cause trouble at, say, like 110,000 miles, and in that same car, other vehicle may get 150. But so we don't have a set plan to start selling them. But when they start costing us more money than they're worth, is about when it is. We've got some vehicles that are not driven a lot, that are specialty vehicles that are considerably years older, so we wouldn't get rid of them just based on the years, and they're not costing us any maintenance or upkeep. But a lot of times it's transmissions and motors that cost us the money, and it's just not worth fixing them when the transmission goes out in them, for instance. So, but generally speaking, we're getting 130 to 170,000 miles out of a car before we sell them, and so it's kind of
And those aren't easy miles.
and those are not mostly easy miles,
Yeah.
no. And they're transitioned around, like the sheriff said. The newer cars go to a group, and then we move them down, pass them down as needed to other groups. But most of the stuff we sell, like that we're putting on there for sale right now, the mileage on those were in the 150 plus range, just for having to keep vehicles longer as we grow and the amount of vehicles we have to buy.
I see. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner, also, I might add to that, they, they're high mileage. We pretty much got the good out of them by the time we put them up, take them off our rotation in the fleet. But something to consider is, I mean, every day you go out here, if you go up on a wreck today, you'll see probably a patrol car sitting there with its blue lights on. If it's blue light stuff's going, it's sitting there idling. So the hours way exceed the mileage on them because they spend a lot of time idling on scenes. A lot
Pretty
of
much run all day.
yeah. They've and I just we got a lot of Dodge Chargers, a lot of Dodge products in their fleet right now, and they're good vehicles. But many of you are familiar with the old Ford Crown Victorias. They is tanks. We could run them forever,
Yeah.
use them,
Right. Right.
and abuse them, and use them again.
Right.
But we don't get that
They don't build cars.
kind of quality
Build
like that
cars like they
today.
used
No,
to.
they
That's
don't
right.
build cars like they used to. So, but I do appreciate the cars and the scanner. So, any questions on the scanner?
I think the scanner's important, not just for
I
the
told
safety of the inmates,
I
but
know
for the,
we
all the
made-
deputies that work in there.
Yes.
Because I'll tell you,
We do.
I've had a picture of them.
Okay. We'll go ahead. One we have on page 19, there's our accurate controls. That's our system. It manages our jail. Everything's push button, computer operated down there. We're beginning to experience some problems with the existing one, and we've got a request in there for $30,465. That's to go ahead and upgrade everything we've currently got, plus a standby system for some redundancy in case we do have a problem in the future. That's an upgrade of something we updated about 6 years ago. It's time to update again.
Have you been pleased with the new food contractor, meal contractor?
Uh, I've got no complaints from no outside family members or no inmates, so for me, no news is good news. So, Captain, I'll let you speak on behalf of the meal contract.
Just like every mill contractor, you have your up days and your down days.
Okay,
But when there is a problem, they're very responsive.
good.
I meet with them quite regular to go over things, make any changes, things like that.
Great, thank you.
We got some maintenance requests in there. I won't go through each one of the maintenance requests, but it's just general upkeep and maintaining their facility like we do each year. There's some photographs attached that you can take time to look at all that. I'm just gonna ask my staff here, Captain, anything you need to address with the board that I've looked over?
We did some painting of the doors in some of the bathrooms, that really needed it because the jail inspection, hammered us. There's one search area that didn't get done that needs the floors and repainted, and I believe that it shows in there just for that search room. It's kind of an ongoing thing when you have the inmates in there drawing on the walls and scratching on the walls, so, something we always gotta do some upkeep on with the painting.
Thank you, Captain. Is that all? Major, anything you need to address with the board?
No, just thank you. I think the sheriff started it off with the thank you that I wanted to thank you earlier. So thank you for all y'all did for us.
Chief?
Same thing, we're real appreciative of all the things that have come to benefit our operations in the last 12 months. salary study was a big project. We realized Axon was a big project. We're grateful for your support on those because they're really going to set the sheriff's office up for the next foreseeable future in a really good place. And that was one of our goals as an administration, was to be sure that we had solidified those areas. So, and we couldn't accomplish any of that without your support. So we want y'all to know that we appreciate it individually and what you've done to help us. The line item increases that we've talked about, they're all going to help us. I think you're probably hearing that theme from other offices and other departments, that the cost of doing business is going up, and that's what we're running into. And I won't go into each detail on those, but we appreciate you supporting us on those, and that'll help us in the next budget year to keep things going in the right direction, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. So we want to keep everything flowing the right way, and we're in good shape. And we're in good shape personnel wise. We're still battling a little bit of ebb and flow, but I think that's the industry more than the more. It's not just a Jackson County problem. That's an industry-wide problem. So grateful, and I appreciate all your support.
Has that Axon been fully implemented?
The tasers are fully implemented. They're all rolled out and in the hands of in the hands of the deputies and detention officers. We've had to slow roll the body cameras, if you will, because number one, we had to write a policy because it was completely new piece of equipment we're rolling out. We had a few issues with infrastructure as far as our network and our upload speeds. The majors worked through that with IT, and we've kind of bumped up the speed at which we can upload those things wirelessly. And so we're doing a phased rollout. The first phase is in process right now. We've got them in the hands of about 15 of our deputies. We're actually expecting them to report back to us on the pros and cons, the good and the bad. We've got a draft policy in their hand. We want to hear back from them on how the policy meshes with how it actually works in the field. We're going to tweak that, and then we're going to roll out the remaining product to everybody probably hopefully in the next 6 weeks. We'll have it on everybody. The car cameras are going to be, because of the provider, they're not going to be here toward the end of the year. So it's a phased thing, but I'm going to tell you, it's such a big project. The fact that they've kind of spoon fed us the equipment has made it a little bit easier on us as far as getting rolled out. But it is in process, and so it should be fully implemented by the end of the year. But I hope the body cameras will be up and running by July 1, and everybody's. And the evidence.com or the evidence library portion of that, we're getting that. Everybody's getting signed in, getting up to speed on their training there. So it's going to be a good thing for us. And but no, they're not sitting and collecting dust. We're getting them out. So
Appreciate update later in the future.
yeah,
Yes.
hopefully we can bring forward in a work session and show you some of the show you what the product's doing for us and what we're able to collect. So but we're having to learn as we go with it. And there's been a couple little bugs with the infrastructure network, but nothing we couldn't fix. It just took some time. Thank you.
I'll share a little bit on that policy that they've created. We've reached out to a number of agencies and got policies from police departments, sheriff's offices, large and small. We've reviewed that. We've looked at it. We've went over it. We have pooled officers. We've picked officers out of our staff, young, just less than 5-year officers. We've talked to 20-plus-year veterans, and we've got a multitude of different opinions on it. So the major and the chief has been writing policy, and I've kind of been like a father with these children. There's been times I've had to just tell them, hey, you need to go to your room and you need to go to your room. So it's been a long time process, but hey, they've done some outstanding policy writing, and we got a lot of good feedback from our staff. And thank you for implementing that. It's going to go into the future and be beneficial for whoever my replacement is in the near future. There's so many legislative bills and action going on down to General Assembly. We're ahead of the game. So I'd like to say thanks to you, thanks to my staff, because it's just a matter of time for it to mandate, and we're done way ahead of it. So going on that, this is my last budget presentation, and I'd like to thank each of you for the years of working with you and the opportunity to serve our citizens and make things better for them out here in the community. And I hope whoever our next elected sheriff is got the working relationship that I've had with you. And so, thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Adams?
Yeah, I do want to make one comment. I do want to, I know there's going to be plenty of events, Sheriff, recognizing your service to this community, but specifically to the budget, I do want to thank you from me and on behalf of our staff of your professionalism. You know, the sheriff and his office and his employees, they provide detailed information every year. They work with county staff and county finance office extremely well. And I just want to say I appreciate your professionalism, and I appreciate how you work with my office and finance office. And it does well, and I do appreciate it.
Mr. Adams, I'll just touch on that a little bit because there'll be a new sheriff here at the end of the year, and they're going to send them to Chapel Hill, the Institute of Government Sheriff Leadership School. And in week one of Sheriff Leadership School, what they're going to teach our new sheriff is you want to be friends with your county manager and your finance director. Keep them close and be good friends with them. They teach you that in week one. So I want to thank you and Miss Fox, not only for our working relationship, but our friendship too.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Any
much.
questions?
Thank y'all for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Mr. Adams, do you want to tee up the next conversation?
Yes, sir. Next discussion, we do have Dr. Marilyn Chamberlain here. They're here in regards to HERE. HERE is our nonprofit organization that provides services to our homeless population. And ultimately, just a reminder to the board, I don't know if you have the information in front of you, but I do think I'd mentioned to you in my budget presentation that it was recommended that HERE receive a 7.4% increase. That was the only increase for the nonprofits that was presented to the board. And so just for numbers' sake, because I know you may not have it in front of you, the recommended budget is 165,225, and the requested amount was 313,944. And Mr. Cochran, Bob, the current executive director, he apologizes he's unable to attend. He had a medical appointment today. He just couldn't get out. So get out of. So having said that, I'll recognize Dr. Chamberlain.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to introduce our, I'm Marilyn Chamberlain. I think I've seen many of you already before. I'd like to recognize and introduce our incoming executive director, Greta Worley. She will start on July 1st. So she's come to help do this presentation. And also we have a board member, Tom Baker, is here with us to support us in our discussion. I'd like to thank you. Wish you kind of helped with the weather a little bit better. You know, I don't get out much these days. I work from home, and so coming in the rain was a thrill, let me tell you. As Don said, Robert would have liked to have been here, but he had a medical appointment and could not come here. I would like to thank you for your continued support of HERE. You have supported HERE, and you've supported other programs similar to that for years, and I know that we all appreciate that greatly. And I would like to thank you for hearing us about this budget request as well. As you know, in 2019, HERE applied to the RFP that came out for funding, and we were awarded that RFP. At the time, we were just a burgeoning little organization, just starting. There were 3 of us in a room, I think. And we've grown. We've added some staff. We've also grown in the number of people we've served. Because we have added staff, we've been able to serve more people. And this past year, we served 113 households in Jackson County. That came to 168 individuals. So when you think of homelessness, it's not a small problem. That's a pretty significant number of households and individuals. We not only shelter those individuals, but we also house them. And as permanent housing as we can. That takes time. I work for several nonprofits that work with housing and homelessness across the country, and they are all expanding their time estimates for how long it takes to work with individuals from the original 12 months. Some of them are now up to 36 months. So this is a long process because these are individuals that have several different kinds of service needs. They also have housing needs. And as you, I'm sure, know, affordable housing in this area is extremely challenging, as it is across the country. So that makes it a little more difficult for us to house quickly, as we used to. We used to be able to house rather quickly. Also, in the last few years, we've experienced the benefits, in a way, of COVID, which was that there was more money put into to homeless programs. That is ending. So we are now having to make up some of that funding in order to continue to maintain the level of services that we've been provided in the past. In when we made our initial RFP, I know that Mr. Adams had spoken to Social Services and Department of Aging. They came in with budgets that were tremendous. They were double what we were requesting at the time. They are almost $70,000 to $100,000 more at that time than what we requested this year. So we have made the best job that we can in funding these projects with other sources other than simply the county funds. However, having said that, we worked really hard to look at the budget when you all came back and said, okay, the recommendation was for $149,000 less. We looked at that and we said, okay, the one thing that we could cut is to not offer housing for individuals during the summer or during the non-winter months. When we look at the number of people we serve during the non-winter months, it does go down because we don't serve cold purple individuals. However,
The summer program, we focus on families with children and the elderly and disabled. To not have that during the summer months for children, that's my biggest concern because it interferes with their sense of self, their self-esteem, their self-worth. For younger children, staying at a hotel is like an adventure. For older children, they can't have their friends over, that kind of thing. But the 30-day program gives their parents, their mom, their dad, whomever, time to settle in, try to find a job, and work with me to help find them housing. As Marilyn said, finding housing has gotten much more difficult. Last summer, I probably housed 6 people within a month. Since then, I'm struggling to find housing. A lot of our clients are HUD recipients. We can't find anyone that's willing to accept our HUD. So it's at this point it's getting some of them are very desperate. I have one mother with a child, and I know that she's been homeless for at least 292 days. At least 292 days. And she has managed to get her child to school. The child still goes to school because a lot of times you'll find that the parents don't send their children to school, but she's managed to get her child to school. She goes to Fairview. Right now I have a disabled veteran, served our country for 15 years, and now he's in my 30-day program. So if we no longer do the 30-day program, these people are going to be back out on the streets about looking again for someplace to go.
eliminating that program would save $66,000. That's what it costs to keep that program going. We also made some other adjustments to cut the budget down by approximately $80,000 if we are not able to get that fund. That still remains another roughly approximately have a gap of $80,000. We reduced it down with a gap of $80,000. We could probably generate those funds in grants. In fact, I'd be pretty confident in the fact that we could generate half of that in grants. But I will be honest with you, I am a grant writer for a living. Those grants are folding up. Investments, foundations base theirs on investments. I've gotten calls from the foundation. Their investments were great the last 2 years. Their investments are drying up this year, and the recession is not helping that. So a lot of the money that's available is going to be more challenging to get because it's going to be more competitive. So we're talking about a gap of $80,000. If we cut that program, we're still talking, again, that would be a cut of $66,000 for that program. So minimally, we would like to ask for $205,000 so that we split the difference of that $80,000 cut. We're fully aware that we are going to be cutting that summer program if we do that. So if you have any questions.
Questions for Dr. Chamberlain?
So right now, Greta, when you're doing the 30-day program, that's the hotel model.
Yes, I'm talking about, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And it's a 30-day program, but again, after 30 days, if they've made every concerted effort to find housing, we will extend that for a little longer. We're not kicking people out because they couldn't find housing at no fault of their own.
Other comments or questions? All right, well, thank y'all for what you do.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Adams, any additional items from staff?
Not for today's meeting, sir. Just a reminder, tomorrow's meeting, 8:30 to begin budget discussions.
Okay. Anything from the commissioners? Any additional comments or questions? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn the budget work session?
So move.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye. Okay.